So, like I mentioned in a previous slide, um, many European artists are taking notice in the Japanese printmaking. This is Vincent van Gogh, and all of you are probably pretty familiar with this artist, turn of the century European artist. He was very interested in the wood block process. And part of the attraction for him and many other European artists was the exotic subject matter. But the artists were also very intrigued by the range of color in these prints. Because remember, there are multiple matrix, multiple blocks. The subtle and economic use of line and the use of the picture space. Remember that we talked about the between that Asian artists are very well known for. There's no middle ground. So you only have foreground and background. So if you look at this piece, that's exactly what happens. Van Gogh very much directly borrows from Le Japon image of a courtesan. So here in a minute, I'll show that image to you and you can look at it and compare and think about that. The foreground is the courtesan, the background is the pond. There is no in between. There's no space between. There are some play on words in this piece. Words for crane and frog in the French were commonly words for prostitute. Okay. So Le Japan, the cover of Paris Illustrate in 1886. As you can see, if you look back at the slide from Van Gogh, it is a direct copy. So you have the needles, the courtesan hairpins that they would use. Van Gogh uses that in his painting. You have the hard line around the courtesan. He does exactly the same thing, only thing Van Gogh just adds more color. This piece is more black and white, and he also Van Gogh makes the background much more busy, whereas this one is just a simple flower. But you can see the influence, you can see the interest of the line, the lack of middle ground, only background and foreground, the interest in beautiful women, the courtesans, that lifestyle, decorative fabrics, beautiful nature, and this again is a wood block. Okay, I want you to take a minute. I want you to really look at this image. Uta Maro's shaving a boy's head. The estimated time it was made, 1795. Color wood block print. So, again, we have a great interest in patterns, the fabrics, the foreground being very much stressed, very much the foreground, whereas the background has nothing. It's plain, simple, that contrast again. And I want you to really look at it. You have beautiful ladies, moms maybe, or courtesans taking care of a child. And this very much fascinates our Western artist, in particular Mary Cassatt. Remember, she was an impressionist that was interested in moms and their children. So let's look at the next slide and see if you can see the influences from this wood print on her work. Mary Cassatt, as you can see, is very influenced by the Japanese wood prints. Here, in her dry point and aqua tint on laid paper, she illustrates the bath. Bath for a child. Again, the focus is a woman and her child. It looks almost very similar to that Japanese wood print that we just saw beforehand. The emphasis again is on the foreground. We have bright yellow patterned flock or dress that she's wearing with the child, simple, clean, and then the background has nothing, no decorations. It is just what it is. So this fascination, if you would say, with Japanese wood prints that European artists have. They like that. Lots of activity in foreground, no middle ground, and sparse background. So opposing forces. So yin and yang. So we have busy foreground, nothing in the background. Okay, so this is Powell's Noonday Rest in Marble Canyon, 1875. This is a wood engraving. It is white line technique in which the fine, narrow grooves cut into the block do not hold ink. Grainy end of a section of the wood is used compared to the rough end. It is 4 by 4. It utilizes instead of the smooth side of the board as in a wood cut proper. So basically it's using the rough edge instead of the smooth. So you can see a little bit of the grain of the wood. The artist, Powell, would have done a drawing, and then a professional wood engraver would have used the original sketch to make this. And as you can see, it is extraordinary in detail line work. And like we talked about before, the closer the lines, the darker the area is. The farther away the lines, the lighter it is. And you can really see that line work in the mountains, the foreground, and then in the middle ground, and then the less line for the lighter work in the background. Looking at this piece, I want you to take a minute and see how many different shades and variation of color that you see in it. Okay. With that in mind, I want to tell you a little bit about this. This is PALS, the tube train. The tube train is the train subway in London. Linoleum cut. It's similar to wood cut, except that the block is made of linoleum instead of wood. It is easier to cut, but wears down faster than a wood cut, so you can't make as many prints. And a lot of times in high school, this is the way we learn about printmaking. The color can be added to a lino cut print by creating a series of different blocks, one for each different color, and align them, which is known as registration, which we defined earlier. So that is how they're getting all these different colors, by overlaying each color on top of each other. Remember, colors, two colors make a different color. So 4 colors, 4 separate linoleum blocks printed in yellow, red, light blue, and dark blue. That we get black, we get orange, we get different variations of blues. So do you see how that works? The artist wants to describe the life in the city of London as workers head home from the underground. Heads are buried in the papers. It has rhythm and repetition, creates a sense of movement of modern life. And I like how it has that little, the back of the train, it looks like it's a circle. It's looking, we're looking through a peephole. So this is a visualization or a diagram to help you understand what intaglio printmaking technique looks like. So instead of putting the ink on top like the wood prints, relief printmaking, here they're putting it down into the grooves. So the first plate, the top, shows putting the ink down and pushing it down deep into the grooves, and it's been then wiped off, the top part. Then you put the image down and you roll it through a press, and the press pushes the paper, and you get this really nice embossed edge where the plate was.